and happy Tuesday to everyone out there, and a special shout out to all my fellow Victorians. We got this, guys. Don't worry about it. It is so great to be here with you. And yes, you'll see a different background as I'm exploring my new regional property. As some of you would know, I only moved in last week, so it's a whole new experience for me as well. Now, of course, it won't surprise you that I am super excited to be here with an incredible guest today, Sally Bruce. And for those of you who don't yet know me or are just tuning in and discovering this amazing live stream series, my name is Alex Tullio. I am the CEO of Financial Executive Women, and we have been turning up now for a year and over 100 episodes to bring you some amazing conversations with leaders and experts from all over the globe. Now, unsurprisingly, you'll all get different things from these conversations. There are personal journeys, there's lived experience, there's highs and lows, you name it, we go through it. So today will be no exception. And so without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's guest, Sally. So for those of you who don't yet know Sally, Sally Bruce is the COO and CFO of Culture Amp, the world's leading employee experience platform, with over 3,000 active business customers in 47 countries around the world. Sally has worked for more than 25 years as a senior executive at global organisations. Prior to joining Culture Amp, Sally was the Chief Executive Officer of AMP Bank. Previously, she was the Chief Financial Officer Business and Personal Banking at National Australia Bank, and has also held a number of senior leadership roles at Macquarie Group. Sally also serves as a Director of Rising, which is formerly the Melbourne International Arts Festival, and Chief Executive Women. Sally holds a bachelor's degree in commerce and a master's degree in applied finance. She's a driver of performance through culture and is passionate advocate of people and diversity in all its forms. Sally, welcome to the show. I am so pumped about the conversation that you and I are about to have. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for joining. I feel immensely privileged to be here. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, look, the feeling's completely mutual. So, yes, let's jump in. Now, I've already warned you, because my favourite question, I think, in any conversation I have is literally just saying, tell us a bit about you in your words, because it's your story. So tell us about Sally Bruce and what's led you to this point in life.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think there's a couple of things about me that are still true. I was born and raised in rural Queensland, so anyone who knows me will tell you that I am still very much a country girl. The other thing that you need to know about me is I'm sixth of six children, so I've never had any regard for authority. Like, when you're sixth and the youngest, you just can't. You're the smallest and the slowest, but you still got to get there. So from an early age, I was navigating hierarchy and trying to get my will heard. And so from the very beginning, I had to learn to work with people. My mum and dad were small business people in a rural community, and that teaches you a lot about reputations, customer experience, and how to play the long game. So I've brought all of those things through my professional career, and it's my great love of people that I think has really supported me most. And I credit that to being sixth of six. I had to negotiate from a very early age.
I was going to say, your influencing and communication skills must be off the charts, just from so give us a bit of an insight. Sisters, brothers, what kind of mix are we looking at here?
So I have two brothers and three sisters, and so you're right. Influencing skills from the get-go. I think motivation is a powerful thing, because, as I said, I was the smallest and the slowest and the least coordinated, which doesn't help. But I did grow the tallest, and my mum thinks that might have been sheer will to kind of get some kind of authority.
I love it. So, you and I were chatting, and we were actually just reflecting before. So as the audience knows, I feel very privileged because I get to have these amazing conversations with incredible people before we even get to the live. We chat about, the shape of the show and behind the scenes and all sorts of things. And literally just probably 10 minutes ago, I was you and I had talked last Thursday when we were thinking, okay, what are some of the themes? And I was just reflecting to you then that it feels like that was a lifetime ago. But, you know, one, I think it just goes so fast. But, of course, Victoria is in lockdown at the moment, and I think that's really affecting people. Give me a bit of a steer on how you're feeling at the moment, and actually tell everyone a bit about where you are physically and geographically, because Culture Amp is relatively still a new experience for you, and you made a big move for this role.
Yeah, no, so for context, I am sitting in my spare bedroom in St Kilda, and I'm 4 months in a new role. So I started at Culture Amp in October last year. I had been working in Sydney for a number of years, but originally have been raising my family in Melbourne. So I was very keen to get back here. So made the very big leap from a career of, and Alex was very kind with my bio, but roughly 30 years in financial services, to do a totally different jump into technology. Was very motivated to get back to Melbourne to raise my children here, but also I knew that created a real opportunity for me to think about what did I want to do next. And so I reflected quite deeply on the things that really energized me. And when I worked through that, I love the people sport of work. Culture is really important to me. Every business that I've run has outperformed the market. And the only reason for that I can really rest on is that the culture, creating teams that are low ego, high intelligence, high collaboration, who make things happen. I love challenges. I love fast growing businesses, and I love positive disruption. So I kind of got back to Melbourne and went, where can I find those things? And I found them in a place I never expected, which is a very fast-growing technology company that focuses on improving the working life of 100 million people. So lots of alignment, but not really what I thought I'd end up doing, but also part of life's great adventure.
Oh, huge. So many things I want to ask you about. So because I actually do want to explore even just what you said about, you know, you've reflected on what gives you energy and how you actually, you know, how you've embarked, and you've used the word already, adventure, how you've embarked on a new adventure and connected with Didier and the Culture Amp team to lead to this as well. But, you know, I would like to talk to you about where we are now, because we are both in Victoria. And I you know, last year was an interesting year, wasn't it? Because on this show, we didn't really talk about lockdown or COVID much. We made a really concerted effort to go, you know what, we're not going to talk about that. There's enough crap out there and noise, and we're all dealing with it. Let's focus on the things that we can do. But it's just made me think over the last few days, the different reactions, which I'm sure you've got too, from friends, peers, staff, anyone and everyone, in terms of how people are reacting to this snap 5-day, who knows, lockdown in Vic. What's your, I guess there's two questions. One, what's your observation of this, how this current snap lockdown is affecting people from a mental health and I guess mindset perspective? And also, what was your reaction? Like, are you just going, you know what it is, nothing changes, we keep rolling on, or has it affected you as well? Like, I'm really curious about both those angles.
Yeah, I think you know, the lockdown at the moment, everyone is really sitting on the edge of their chair of, is it going to be 5 days? I think if it's 5 days, it feels quite manageable. I think there will be a real slump in people's well-being if it gets extended. In Victoria particularly, and you know this, Alex, the second lockdown was not met with the same enthusiasm. We weren't all making sourdough in the second lockdown. There was a fair bit of, holy shit, how long can this go on? Yeah. And how much homeschooling can everyone do whilst trying to maintain some kind of normality? I think mental health is a real watch space, and I'm imagining if this short lockdown turns into something longer, the experience of a third lockdown will only push people further than the last one. It's the context for which people is working in is really important. I think lockdown's really shown, are you a good people leader? Do you really know your people? Because, you know, so many leaders have been shown to not really understand their people. Do they have an elderly mother that they're worried about? Do they have a supportive spouse? Do they have children? Do those children have particular challenges or needs of their own? Are they an introvert? Are they an extrovert? Are they on their own? And if you weren't the kind of leader who had that information going into lockdown, you weren't equipped to support your people. And how much harder is that to get over Zoom? So I'm kind of hoping that a lot of leaders have used the kind of interim period to get to know their people better, to be more supportive. But I think there's great resilience in our people. And my God, this kind of period and, the innovation and the enthusiasm in adverse situation has been extraordinary. To have a lot of confidence in human nature, but there's also a lot of love and support needed. But to answer your first question about my reaction, I had a really naughty reaction. I was really grateful school sport had been cancelled, because my sleeping on a Saturday morning was going to be disrupted by having to drop a child a million miles away. So I went, oh my goodness, I get to sleep in now.
I love an naughty reaction. So, and what you say, it's resonating with me on so many levels, because we're in a human game, right? I mean, and there's a whole theme that, as I said to you, when we first chatted, I'm like, this can go anywhere and everywhere, which is great. But there's this whole theme about, being human, and the fact that business is about people and that connection. Yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if you and I chatted about it last week, but I've seen, even before this snap lockdown, and you're completely right. I think if it goes on longer, I think people's mental health and that need for human connection and all those, as you said, it's a contact sport, and right now we're being constricted. So I think we have to be even more vigilant for our people around their mental health and their mindset. The thing that's really, I'm finding quite interesting at the moment. So we come back in 2021. Miraculously, COVID didn't just disappear. Like, I think some people kind of hoping that it would be the 1st of January and back to normal. And I don't know about, I think I do know what your view will be, but you tell me. I'm very much, hell no, we don't want to be going back to normal. Like, if there's anything we can take from this around diversity and hybrid teams, and actually the nonsense about whether you can work flexibly once and for all if you can't see people, and like all these big things that we've kind of used, I think, in business as excuses for keeping things the way we want it for a while, right? So I reflect on this year and I'm like, okay, well, who knows what's going to happen? And if there's a lesson here for me anyway, it's that from a team and a leadership perspective, we're going to have hybrid teams. All sorts of hybrid, geographically, people passing each other in shifts, coming into offices, not at all. But I've heard two different reactions to this. One is leaders who are going, hell yeah, this is proven, it's dispelled the myths, let's embrace. How do you connect people and build culture when we're like this and not together? And to the other end of the spectrum, I've also seen and heard of other leaders who are like, okay, team, time to get back in the office now, because I feel like that's their comfort zone. Go anywhere with that. But I just think this is it's an interesting space that we're in: leadership, human communication, culture, all these great things that we're talking about. Give me your 2 cents on all of that.
I think, it's the old adage, you cannot waste the crisis. We have kind of accelerated change that has been magnificent. And there's stuff that we've also lost, which we have to be very respectful of and find, like, how do you connect and how do you build those bonds? I'm still learning so much about my team, because I actually only ever see them down on Zoom camera. I didn't get the opportunity to meet them before we started working together. And so I've very consciously said, I'm not going to stop learning about them, because, you go, I've got this, I know this person, I've worked them out. I'm going, I'm not going to do that, because actually I can't. I don't see how they work day to day. I don't see how they interact. I just see them down a Zoom camera. So I think one of the things that I'm really focusing on is continuing to learn about people and not close the file and think I've got them. But I also think I had the wonderful kind of delight last week that I actually went into town and had lunch with a group of people and we spoke on a topic. I haven't done that for over a year, and I was a bit more like an excited schoolgirl to be in a room full of people to have a lunch discussion. But I was talking to someone who was saying, oh, I'm under immense pressure just to be back in the office and to return to normal. And I felt immediately sad, because that's actually not necessary. I don't know about you, but I don't want to spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, commuting. Like, that's dead time. Now I'm thinking, God, I don't want to do that. I do want to connect, and I do want to be with people. I'm very lucky because obviously, you know, in my position, I have a lot of influence, but also the organisation I work with, we're really talking about, well, what meetings do we need to be together for? Like, when do we need to commune? We're also global, so we really kind of never get to be together. So very little will change for us, but we will kind of get clearer on when do we need to commune and what are those windows, and making sure we give lots of people opportunity. But Alex, this really plays to one of the things that you and I did talk about last week, where I think each of us doesn't use the personal power we have. Because, you know, any of us who are leaders, it doesn't matter if you're lucky enough to be someone like me who has been the CEO, or at the moment who's on the exec committee, even, you know, regardless of where you are, if you're a people leader or a manager in the hierarchy, you can actually create arrangements for your team that are within your power. You have power to do that. Some will be limited, but, you know, you can set the tone for your team on what flexibility looks like. You can say, look, I totally get it. You need to work from home. You can create that environment. You know, it's easier when you have organisational permission to do it, for sure, and all the policies are in place. But most of the time I see the policies are in place, but they're actually not brought to life. And so, you know, there's so much we can do at a local level to create the environment for the team that we lead. So it's the environment we want to be proud of and we would want to work in ourselves. So, you know, don't wait for your boss or your boss's boss to kind of make that okay. Make some rules up for yourself around your team, and I've no doubt you'll be paid back with loyalty, you know, mass return in terms of productivity and motivation. I think it's a really, really kind of, there's this false belief that if people work flexibly, they'll skive off and you'll get less productivity. I've actually been a massive kind of advocate of flexible work, mainly because I've needed it myself as a working mother. You know, I kind of got with the program pretty quickly. But I have never, ever been abused for that. I have always got mass loyalty, mass productivity, and people who are willing to go the extra mile. I don't believe the stories that you lose productivity and people skive off, because actually that can happen in the office. That's performance management. That's leadership. Like, you don't have to be out of the office for that to happen.
And I don't know, I'm not sure about you, but I know there's been some studies even from last year which actually says the reverse is true, right? That people are actually working longer. And I wanted to talk about this because, again, I'm glad that you brought up the personal power, because you and I we did have this great conversation, which I want to bring to life here, about this concept, because it's not power in you know, that sort of linear sense about, you know, power from, it's not that at all. What you were talking about, which I completely agree with, is what you're describing now is we actually do have the power, and I think your words were, we have degrees of freedom which we don't use in all of our lives to shape our life, what we want, how it looks for our team, the type of leader that we want to be, all these sorts of things. And we're human, right? So we're imperfect, which I celebrate. There's no such thing as perfect.
Thank God.
So mind you, it's taken me a while to actually be able to say that and believe, you know, it's the wisdom, right? You go through these things and you go, you know what, I am who I am and I'll try my best. But so I want to touch on a few of these things, because it's interesting that you know, we've kind of gone to the productivity, which is just one facet. And great, so now you're at home, and a lot of our amazing community listening and tuning in, we've got guys and girls of all different ages, families, no families, execs, emerging leaders. That's the beauty of this community. And I know there's a lot of people, Sal, that would say, you know, I feel guilty, right? And it's not just working mums. I feel guilty because now I'm at home, I need to work longer and the computer's kind of there and I don't switch off and I'm putting more in. That, my view, not okay. Like, working longer and harder and never leaving the screen is actually the worst thing, I think. So I sort of wanted for you and I to have a bit of a chat about that, also through the lens of of your point about personal power, and you can create your rules and your cadence and really bake in what energizes you so you can be performing at your best, and it's not doing 15-hour days in front of a screen.
Oh no, it's definitely not. And I have a really simple kind of approach to this. I think you have to be clear and authentic. You have to showcase how you work. So, for example, people who work with me will know that I'm Sparky the spaceship in the morning and I'm at my best. But, literally it's a downhill trip. So if you've got me at 6 or 7 at night, don't expect much from me. I'll nod politely, but, the lights might be on, but no one's home kind of thing. So I'm really open about that, and I'm really honest about that. And I'm also really open about, I've had jobs before where I would, always be on call for media. Something would blow up and, I'd have the media team on me. And even in that, which is real time, front page of the Fin, front page of, the tabloids kind of stuff, the media team knew that I put my kids to bed at 7 p.m. Yeah. So they go, okay, between kind of 5:30 and 7, Sal needs to feed, bathe, read a story and put her kids to bed. If we can hold it, if my phone rang at 7:01, I knew, that's the media team, they need me, they need me urgently. But they knew what was going on. And, when I was running the bank, you actually have to legally, formally sign over your delegation because you've got legal responsibilities that can be criminal liabilities. And so I used to do that on my holidays and thoroughly check out because you have to role model it. You have to do that.
I'm so glad. Yes. Yeah. So let's talk more about this because I think this is so important, and this is if anything, this show, apart from having great conversations, I think having conversations about this that really call out behaviours and role modelling is super important because so many, I think, of us, and I know certainly in my career coming up, in different organisations, you didn't see that. Like once you got to a certain level, the CEO or the leader was on holiday, air quotes, but not really, still checking email and doing this. And it's such a bad example because, of course, everyone else around you then goes, well, if that's what you do, that's what you expect. So therefore, I'm always in response mode, whether it's a Sunday or a holiday. And it's just so you managed to do this when you're the CEO of AMP Bank, and you had all these things happening. Did you find that in that time, and obviously share what you can, but was there any resistance to you doing that and saying no when I'm on holiday? Did you find that others tried to draw you back in, going but you didn't really mean that, or were people pretty accepting because you set really clear boundaries around what did and didn't work for you?
Well, look, you have to, when I went in to do that, it was a totally different change to anything that had happened before. So kind of people go, is this really going to happen? There's a natural journey there. And there's some trepidation. So you're delegating that to me, this little holy shit moments and all that kind of stuff. But I set out, and I always do this, there's no honeymoon period with me. I begin as I intend to finish. And I really believe if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I remember when I stepped into the CEO of AMP Bank, the first conversation I had with the chair was we need to change the dates of these board meetings. 3 out of 4 of them are in school holidays, and that's really not role modelling to our team that we value that they have a life outside of work, and we want them to be great parents, great humans, because if they're that, they can bring great people to the office. If they're not that, they'll bring a shitty version of themselves to the office.
Yeah.
And, that required some courage. I just had a new chair. I was very, very fortunate in that instance because my chair was also a working mum. So, the more of us, the better. You all know that. And she said, she was mortified. And she said, oh, absolutely. I'm so horrified. I've never thought about that. And but then, we had the AMP board and they were going, well, that doesn't work. We want them to cascade up to the AMP board meeting. And I went, well, we can change that too. And so, I did really face some kind of, this is not kind of easy. But, you can also be a bit, kind of belligerent. And, in that one, year one, I had to fight really hard to shift it because I just said to them, otherwise I've got people working all through school holidays. I need them to rest. I need them to be their best version. That's the easiest time for them to take leave. And I'm going to kind of then ride them for not taking their leave. Year one, I had to fight. Year two, at the AMP group level, they came to me first and said, okay, when do you want your meetings? And we'll arrange the cascades around that. So, there's a little bit, and I use this all the time. I say to my team and people around me, he who's organised wins. Like, if you know what you want and you've kind of put thought into it, the law of averages, it'll sort out for you first because no one else will have organised their thoughts. So, get organised. But there's so many, this is what I say to you, that use your degrees of freedom you've got because, we will all sit here as a cohort of women and say, it's not flexible enough, gender pay parity isn't taken seriously, and diversity is not really a priority. And so I say to every single person on this video call, are you hiring diversely? Like, are you going, I'm going to take the extra month to find the right person? Or are you going, I've just got to slam someone in there right now? Like, what are you doing? Like, you can actually make decisions to pay people like for like roles. Like, you are actually making the decisions for your team. You may not have the benefit of all the policies or the behaviours above you, but, it's one of the things I've always done. I've gone, it's just not fair, and whatever I can do. And I totally get it's hard. It requires courage, but, I'm now 50. Let me tell you, I didn't start out very brave or bold, but over the course of my career, I've got a bit more confident, a bit more cocky, and probably a bit more unrepentant. And, I've grown my own degrees of freedom. And, you tend to do that as you grow your role and you're already practiced at making sure you don't waste the opportunities. So I think to all the fabulous women who are on this call, don't miss your windows to make a difference for your team.
I've got goosebumps. I love this. I'm making notes as we go because these are such important things. Grow your own degrees of freedom, first of all. And I think you're right. I mean, you and I were chatting about this as well. I think as we get older and more experienced, we've had times when it hasn't worked out and you have lessons and you haven't been confident. I remember the first time I got promoted to my first exec role, this is not a new story for a lot of you. And I remember, I had a Sydney gig, so I was based in Melbourne, had a Sydney, that was my first exec portfolio. And I remember back then being so lacking confidence that I could actually do this job. I would literally cry in the hotel room, like when I got going, oh my God. And I reflect on that now, and it takes those moments and then the great people around you and then those light bulbs where you go, oh, actually, this is my transferables, all that whole journey. Like sometimes I remember I was thinking, can't you shortcut that and just get to being here? But I don't know about you. I don't reckon you can. I think you've got to feel the pain and the lessons and all that to get to this point where we're both kind of going, you know what? I'm happy to kind of shake things up a bit. I wanted to go back just quickly too, because I love your story about those board meetings, because I think there's some really important messages in there. It is so easy, isn't it? When you first got that pushback about, yeah, but this rolls up to the group board, it's very easy in that moment to go, oh, well, look, I tried and it probably is a bit too hard and they're never going to budget because it's set in stone. And obviously you persisted and you kept challenging. And I just think that's a great takeout for everyone listening. The things that seem like they're set in stone generally aren't. Just because they've always been that way doesn't mean they have to be. But you do need to be courageous and, to use your words, Sal, probably a bit belligerent about things. But I think that's a lesson for me as well, is that it's very easy to kind of accept the status quo and the norm when often you don't have to.
I think it's true. And in that example, and in every example where I've been able to kind of drive change, there's a superpower that we as women forget we have. We actually know to ask for help, and we know how to get help. And so, I don't do anything on my own. God forbid, so with the board, like, there were people around me go, like, we can't be proud of this. Like, how do you help? Can you help me kind of turn the dial on this? Who should I be talking to? Who can make this change? And like, there's other working women who are on the board, etc. And it's a real superpower we have. One of the things, and I know I'm generalising, which is always dangerous, but we all know that men don't tend to ask for help. And that's why mental health problems are rife as they are, with, men not being okay and not reaching out. But women, we naturally do that. And so none of this happens on its own. But I tell you what, you can really create a lot of pride. And I'm going to give you another example, which is on top of the board example, one where we set up and we agreed, and this wasn't my idea, it was one of my team members' idea, that every decision-making meeting had to have 30% men and 30% women. The other 30% could be whatever, but there had to at least be 30%. And it kind of goes down to the rule of three. Like, if you don't have three of a kind, they're not empowered. And so we just made that a rule, that all of our board delegated meetings, which were our most important ones, the regulators, etc., there had to be this diversity, and we called it the 30-30 rule. So on every agenda, here's the agenda. Do we have 30-30? It was the responsibility of the chair to make sure we had 30-30. At first, like, it was hard. It was hard. And so the chair had to make sure that we had 30% men, 30% women. We all became really good at maths. Like, we got 14 people, what's 30% of that? But I tell you what was just beautiful was the men were 10 foot tall when we got it working, because they were going, our meetings are 30-30. Like, the women thought this was a great breakthrough, and it was. But the men were the most powerful advocates, because they were really proud. They were really proud they were part of something. And so, ask for help, but just don't be limited about where the help might come from either. Like, there's a lot of guys out there who are Luddites, but, there's a lot of guys out there who kind of really want to get into this too.
Yeah. And I love that you've gone there, because I think you and I were chatting. Obviously FEW is an amazing organisation, been around for, I think this is the 9th year now, but we've opened up our membership to men only last year, because it's got to be men and women together. It's got to be conversations like this. It's not just, one pitted against the other. Anyway, that's a whole probably another show. I wanted to change tack a little bit. Go back to where we started from, and everyone. So Sal did say, hey, I'm happy to go anywhere. No holds barred. Oh, God, the perfect guest. not real clangers for you, but I want to revisit, you and I were talking about this concept of your own personal power, and that you can, whether it's a pay rise, whether it's the environment that you work in, whether it's the hours that you work, whether it's your energy or whatever it is, that we actually do have more control over us and our minds and our actions than sometimes we forget that we do have that. And then you and I were chatting about, that we were talking about some mega changes in life as well as some little ones. And we started talking about when you made one of your first big decisions to leave a really big role, corporate role. And I just love that you were saying, to paraphrase, I kind of know when it's time for a new adventure, or when that chapter's closed. You're sort of talking along those lines. And I would love to explore that a bit more, not least because then you've just moved to Melbourne and you found Culture Amp. So I want to go back to that. But I think this is an important point, Sal, because I find a lot of our members, and again, not just women, but mainly women, feel stuck. There've been so many, and they are smart, motivated, intelligent, incredibly skilled women with a lot of experience going, this year's kind of shown me that I don't want to do this, or I'm not happy, but I'm scared, I feel stuck, I'm the breadwinner, I don't know, what if no one wants me, I can't see, all of that stuff that we tell ourselves, which is real.
Yeah.
I'd love to go a bit into, and again, any way you want to talk to that, but you being able to go, what goes through your mind when you go, this is awesome, but it's time, and then having that courage to make that leap. Talk to us about any and all of that.
Yeah, no, and am a real believer that I said this to before. Life's not a dress rehearsal. So you get, I'd love to be reincarnated, and I hope I'm wrong because I'd love another crack at it. But I'm not going to assume that I'm going to get another crack at it. So I'm always thinking, I get one shot at the title, one life to live. How am I going to use it? And I'm not always courageous. I've made some really courageous decisions. And in fact, I caught up with someone last week who said to me, I'm going to do a Sally. And I was a bit horrified. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, I'm going to make a big, bold move. And I said to her, please don't call it that, because then I'll feel responsible for it. One of the things that I've learnt to do over my life is to listen and learn about myself. And so that's been probably the most powerful thing. Every role I have or project I have, I actually take the time to think about, what did I learn about myself in that? What kind of showed up there? Why did that show up? And I observe myself in those circumstances. And what that does is it tells me where I get energy and where I get joy and where I don't. And so I continue to learn. I go, oh, God, I didn't really enjoy that very much. Why was that? And I learn something more about myself every time. And so I'm still learning. But I'm a real believer that if you play to your strengths, you're going to thrive. You have to know and understand your weaknesses and manage them. You can't be kind of cavalier about that. But I'm not a subscriber to you spend your whole life trying to sort your weaknesses out.
Oh, me neither.
Let's be real about it. These are my weaknesses. I need really good people around me who know they're my weaknesses, and they spot for me and they keep me safe. And this is what I'm really good at. You can never get the perfect job because you always got shit bits. But I've learned as I've gone on what's going to energize me. And when I'm energized, I'm the best at how I play. And so because I am really thoughtful about that, I kind of know when a journey ends. And, the first one was like, I had 20 years at Macquarie, and, I literally had the greatest career you could ever have. And people kind of saying to me, you're a lunatic. Why are you leaving? Yeah. And I went, I have loved my time here, and I love the people. I love the organisation, and I still do. But, it had run its course for me. And I thought, I feel like I need a new environment to learn in. I need to be challenged in new ways. And I was terrified. It took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to kind of make myself do it. And then I did it. And, still everyone said to me, that's a madness. Why would you do that? And I jumped into something totally different. I went to NAB. It was retail. I hadn't done that. And then, that was also exciting because, I could be quite frank with them because I'm terminally honest. So I said to them, look, I've never done this before. So I don't actually know what you want me to do. But if you're up for it, I'm game. And they said, oh, well, we've actually looked in all the usual places. And so all the usual places bring us what we expect. So maybe someone who brings us what we don't expect is what we need right now. And, it was kind of magical. But it also ran its course. And I haven't, I do think we as women will look at a list of 10 criteria and go, I've got 6 of them, I'm not good enough yet. I force myself to not let that happen. It requires courage every time. I mean, I'm now working in a tech organisation. And I can quite literally say to them, I've done culture at scale successfully. You haven't, but the rest I don't know.
Yeah.
And, that's a very honest conversation. They go, that's great because there's a 1 + 1 = 3 there. Yeah. And, it's okay not to be everything on the list, but it's not okay to not put yourself forward. They said I'm sounding very brave. But, I have a husband that kind of, shoves me out the door on some days. I have children, 2 teenage daughters who will tell me, how inadequate I am quite frequently. And so I have to work on my own self-belief, just like everyone else.
And I love that you're sharing this again. There's so many things in there. When you did you and yes, here for the strengths. Like, people who tune in know I'm always going on about the zone of genius, right? Like it sounds you are. I'm double down on what you're good at and what gives you energy and stimulates you and excites you, because when you're doing that, you're amazing, right? And you're quite right. The weakness and even the stuff that you're not so good at, don't ignore it. But then to your earlier point about recruiting the team around you, this is how you build powerhouse teams, right? Because everyone, it's all together. It becomes this amazing powerhouse because you all know where you're best operating.
Well, and everyone knows you're not perfect. Everyone knows you're not perfect. So when my team's around me, they all know they play a vital role. It's not like, Sal's got it all covered because she's all knowing, all seeing, all doing. It's actually, I'm really important and really valued because I bring something no one else does. And it's the brain's trust.
Together. And isn't it, have you ever felt this? I remember, and again, I feel like it's probably part of that journey where, and I don't know about you, but I remember, the first time, and there's leaders in business have a lot to answer for, I think. So any leaders here building teams, remember this. I remember first being promoted to kind of my first leadership role. This is a long time ago now. I never wanted to have a team because why would you? I was meeting my own sales targets and fine by myself. So you get chucked into the role and then there's no handbook, right? There's no handbook about what you're meant to do. So I remember, and this is probably for a few of my early more senior roles, going, gosh, but I've got to know everything because that's why they put me in this job. And if I don't know the answer, then they're going to think you kind of go through all that and then hopefully you grow out of it. And certainly I just remember feeling that point when I went, I don't have all the answers, and actually just saying that out loud to the team, the exec team, going, God, that feels liberating. I don't know. It's the best thing when you get to that point, I think anyway, when you go, you know what, I don't know. That's not my thing. But let's find out, or let's ask the right questions, or I know someone who does. I just found that liberating getting to that point.
It's really powerful. And I had a really great lesson one time where something had screwed up really badly and I was slightly panicked. And that doesn't happen to me very often, but I was there, I was in that zone, and I grabbed my team and we went into a meeting room and I said, look, screwed up, slightly panicked, bunny in the headlights, don't know how to think about it, but we need to turn around a solution pretty quickly. I need you and I need you now. And they were just brilliant. Like, there were a couple of hugs. There's, we've got this, we've got you. And then I had a bunch of clear heads who just broke the problem down. And in an hour, we walked out of that room. And the genius I brought to that was I shared that I was losing my cool. I didn't know the answer. And I brought them in and they just self-organized and nailed it. And then I went and presented the answer. A cool, collected kind of human being whose team had stood behind me and held me up. And that team, after that, was stronger than you'll ever see. They were just unbelievable. They knew they were valued and they were confident. And, just my screw-up led us to there, which was awesome.
But this is where great teams are forged, isn't it? I mean, it's having these honest conversations and actually getting through that. And you're right, because when you're under pressure, something that you can't solve that feels insurmountable, the next person goes, oh, yeah, no, that's easy. We do it this way. I can't believe we're nearly out of time. I told you this would go so fast. I feel like there's about 50 questions I haven't even asked you yet. But I mean, so far, I know we've covered a lot of ground for everyone listening, but I think this is so good. So I would like to, so you came to Melbourne. What led you to Culture Amp? Like, because you know how before, right back at the start, you're saying, I'd figured out what energized me. I wanted to make the move. I never thought that, that this is where I'd end up, but there you go. So what actually did happen? What led you to this current role?
Well, look, I'm big on crowdsourcing wisdom. I was really, really clear because I'd done my self-reflecting that I loved growing businesses. I love positive disruption. I loved rapid change, and culture had to be central, and and I love the people sport, and I wanted to impact the lives of many positively. I'm talking to that with my friends, going, what do you think? Who do you think I should be talking to, etc. And my neighbour introduced me to Didier, who's the CEO and founder of Culture Amp. It was in lockdown, deepest, darkest lockdown. We all live within a kilometre of each other. And so unbeknownst to me, I just started walking with Didier. We would catch up, and he was running a business in a COVID crisis he'd never encountered. He was sharing how that was going. I was sharing my experience and kind of trying to be helpful and getting to know him because a friend had introduced me to a friend. And I love that. I always say yes. If a friend introduces you to someone, they don't refer dickheads, honestly. There's a quality control there. And so we just walked all through lockdown, and he said, I kind of think I've got everything on your list. And I sort of went, oh, yeah, this is not how I thought it would look, because I was sort of thinking bigger corporate, whatever, and the world was telling me big corporate. But anyway, I think you're right. And by then, we had probably talked about many things far and wide, and were quite comfortable. I think there's a 1 + 1 = 3 here. Like, together, I have something you don't have. As I said before, I've done culture at scale and performance at scale. You haven't. But I haven't done any of the others. So let's learn from each other and see what the 1 + 1 = 3 can be.
See, I knew that was going to be an awesome story, which is why I kept going, no, I want to come back. The lesson, though, with that is, as you said, always listen when someone refers or introduces you to someone. Have the conversation, make the connection, forge a relationship with no expectation, and that is how you network effectively, because you never know where it's going to end. So just to finish up, Sal, so can you hear my dog is scratching on his bed now? He's been good for 45 minutes. Just to finish this up, anything you want to leave our audience with before we finish up and say goodbye?
Look, thank you all for your time. I hope it's been well spent. There's a few years of wisdom here, so I'm hoping something was there for you. But my biggest thing to you is you control your destiny. If you don't like your circumstances, change it. But also, don't waste your degrees of freedom and your power. You got more than you realise. Just be conscious of it and make the most of it. And you'll not only change your kind of universe, you'll change the universe of people around you by showing them how to do it.
That is amazing. What a great way to finish up. Thank you so much, Sally Bruce. It has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like I'm going to book you in for the next episode soon. But thanks. I really appreciate it. And to everyone listening, I hope you got as much from this as I did. These are such amazing personal stories. We go anywhere and everywhere, but I think that's kind of where the magic lies. So many worlds of wisdom. Thanks, Sal. Have a brilliant day. And everyone, we'll see you tomorrow again at 12 o'clock. See you soon.
Thanks, Alex.